The Texans for sure starters heading into the season. And if D'Amico Ryans and Nick Caserio don't do this, the Texans don't have a chance in hell of doing anything in 2026. Let's talk about it.
Yeah. It's the Locker Room on YouTube. You know what it is. Let's get it. Hey, Locker Room. Yeah, we in the locker room. Texas talk. Yeah, you know what we about to do. Localize every angle's what we really do. We the source. We the pulse of the city too. Landlocked. Got the game in the headlock. Localize every time. Can't stop, won't stop.
It's one of the most important off seasons in Texans, maybe franchise history. Maybe one of the most important off seasons of all time. It is the Locker Room, number one source for Texans digital content. I am Landry Locker. You can see me, hear me here throughout the week, Monday through Friday, 10:30, whether we're in the off season or in season, which means really the off season does not exist. Try to figure out what the hell I just said there. Also, SNL on all podcast platforms, and as well as right here on YouTube, Monday through Friday, 4 o'clock. We'll be live at the Combine less than 2 weeks. Shout out to the greatness of Sleeper for sponsoring the video. $20 free. All you got to do is use the promo code LOCKER. If you haven't used Sleeper to play the DFS, Daily Fantasy, you should. It makes these basketball games more fun to watch. These NBA players, sometimes they don't care, but it makes it more fun when it comes to the DFS. Higher, greater than, less than points. You decide. There's also a lot of information now if you decide to make other decisions in sports. Right now, Team Picks has launched by Sleeper. A lot of information there, and you can get $20 free. Use that promo code LOCKER. Shout out to the greatness that is Sleeper. You look at this, look at these percentages and stuff, and it's just incredible. It's going to be a real good asset during football, going to be a real good asset during March Madness, real good asset now to make things more fun. Consume as much information as possible. Be responsible. There are no guarantees. Download the Sleeper app. Use the promo code LOCKER. So Nick Caserio and D'Amico Ryans are heading into their fourth offseason. It is the most crucial offseason maybe in Texans franchise history, because you have one half of your team is championship caliber on defense. The other half of your team is not championship caliber. And a big part of reason why it's not is CJ Stroud, who's in the fourth year of his rookie deal, fourth of 5, because they will pick up the 5th-year option, regardless of what the decision is about his future after this season. It's financially competent to be able to pick up that 5th-year option, regardless of what you decide. But the Texans must do something, or else you can lose hope. Sell your season tickets, lower your expectations. We're going to watch the games no matter what. Hell, we started this during the Lovie Smith / Coley area. We started the digital game on top of being live on the radio every day. So we're going to watch no matter what, but there's no hope if they don't do this. I'll tell you what this is in a sec, but let's talk a little bit more about this offseason and where the Texans are right now. I think there's 14 for sure starters. And you can maybe say more, but 14 for sure starters that I can say unequivocally, they're 100% going to be starters on this team. Now, some of these might make you sick. Some of it's based on my thoughts. Some of it's based on what they say. But I think there are 6 starters on offense that are guaranteed, and I think there are 8 starters on defense. So we'll start with the defense. On defense, I think your for sure starters on defense are Will Anderson and Danielle Hunter, obviously. Tommy Togiai. We don't know what's going to happen with the other DT spot with Sheldon Rankins. That'll be interesting to see. They could bring him back. I assume there's going to be some more bodies on there, and they probably want to get some youth there. But Sheldon Rankins, we don't know. Then we know there's actually 9. Petrie is 9. So we put Petrie on there as well. You always forget about him because he's kind of the hype. But there are 9 starters on defense. The only uncertainty is the safety spot by Kalen Bullock, and it could be Jalen Reed. They like Jalen Reed. There's not going to be Jimmy Ward. We don't anticipate this upcoming season, and we don't know what they're going to do with MJ Stewart and then the Sheldon Rankin spot. But outside of that, you got nine guys that you know are going to go. Now, maybe they bring in some competition for To'o. I could see that happening. But these are 9 guys that you know 100% certainty. Best defense in the league last year, arguably. Maybe not even arguably to some. You got 9 starters back, and you only got 2 uncertainties with Sheldon Rankins and the other safety spot. But you do have Jalen Reed, who you like. And if you bring back Sheldon Rankins, you like him, and maybe you just fill in the pieces accordingly. Maybe there's some healthy competition. Maybe you figure some stuff out. But on defense, you're pretty set for 1 year. Now, it gets real interesting next year when the offseason begins, because that's when Hunter, you're probably not going to be able to afford, depending on what happens. You're going to have to pay Will Anderson. Tommy Togiai is going to probably be more expensive. Azeez Al-Shire, you might be paying more. Toto, you have to make a decision on, and Bullock and Lassiter will both be eligible for extensions. And you'll also have Stingley on his new contract and Petrie on his new contract. So this can get really effing expensive around here. And this kind of adds to the uncertainty at the most important position and on the offense. But you have 9 starters on defense that you feel good about, 2 that you could easily bring back. One's going to be back for sure. So on defense, you feel pretty good this upcoming season. We won't give ourselves a headache and overthink it too much for next season. But, you know, I'm never opposed to playing chess and thinking a move ahead or a season ahead. Then we go to the offense. Offense right now, the starters you know for sure are CJ Stroud. I put 6, but there's actually 7 because I'm hesitant to admit or completely submit to the Andrews thing, but I think the Andrews thing is. So it's 6/7 because I could very easily see them bringing Jake Andrews back. I think Ursery, Andrews, and Howard are the 3 guys to expect on the O-line. Schultz at tight end, and then Nico Collins, Jaden Higgins, and CJ Stroud. These are your 7. So you're looking at offensive line. You don't feel great really about too much on the offensive line, but it does feel like that's the direction they're heading, especially with where they are with Titus Howard. But at running back, you don't know. And then there's some other uncertainties there as well. Are we going to count the slot receiver? Do you count Jalen Knoll? Don't know. But you have about 6 or 7 on offense. So that's kind of the layout of things. But on defense, it does get rather scary when you go down the line and you start to think about what the Bills are going to be. So that's what the whole thing is. And I do get a kick out of this from Brandon. I said the Sheldon Rankins thing I get. He's good for mentoring young guys. At what point does Will Anderson mentor young guys? Like they don't, at some point, these guys aren't kids anymore. Like I think Will Anderson would be fine mentoring someone. I think Tommy Togiai could mentor someone. Like, I don't know that there's too many guys that you can look at outside of Will Anderson and Tommy Togiai. Like, this is the mindset that I think a lot of times that the Texans, D'Amico and Caserio have, where you keep Dare Gumbawales around because you think that he's like a mentor and like he's a good example. But I don't necessarily know that you need some mentor to be there. Kamari Lassiter can mentor people. I think Kalen Bullock can even mentor people at this point. I think Derek Stingley by action can mentor people. I think Kamari Lassiter can mentor people. Like, the notion that you got to keep the old guy around to mentor is kind of silly to me at this point, especially with what the makeup is with these guys. I think if Sheldon Rankins can play at the level that he did last year, then yeah, bring him back. But they don't need mentors at this point. They need someone to complement them on defense, and that's it. They're past the mentor phase. They're past the mentor phase. They have if a rookie, if you draft a rookie, if you draft Lee Hunter, let's say Lee Hunter at 28, let's say you draft him with your first or second pick. Let's say he falls to 38, or you take him at 28, whichever pick you want. He's going to be fine. he's going to be fine. He's going to have plenty of guys to look up to and plenty of mentors to look up to when he walks in that locker room. on both sides of it. He's going to have 3 guys right there on the defensive line in 3-point stances with him. He's going to have 2 guys behind him at linebacker in To'o and Azeez Al-Shaair. He's going to have 2 corners, and he's going to have 2 safeties. He's also going to have D'Amico. So they're past the mentor shit. And I love Brandon. He's always in here. He's always got some of the best takes. But fuck a mentor at this point. They need to grow up. And that brings me to this next thing. And I think there's 2 things that the Texans need to do to show that they're growing the hell up. Because I think right now there's a sense of romanticism that comes with D'Amico and Caserio that they need to move on from. A lot of times they like the ideas of guys more than they actually do, or should be blinded by what guys actually do on the field. I think it gets a little bit out of control. And there's a lot of examples that I use. Look, right now that we're not fully in combine mode. Combine is less than 2 weeks, so we'll transition into that. So a lot of this stuff is just going to be hammering the points that I want to hammer heading into the offseason. But I think there's been a couple of examples of it that I think you just kind of roll your eyes at. And I think the Dameon Pierce thing is one where every excuse possible was made for Dameon Pierce for 4 years. You heard it from Nick Caserio. Every word that Nick Caserio said about Dameon Pierce was some sort of excuse. And he lingers around for 4 years, and your running back depth takes a hit as a result of it. He's never able to stay healthy. First, it's because he's dealing with something. It's a different system. It's a difficult system to pick up. And then all of a sudden there's all these excuses, and you like the personality and you like the idea of Dameon Pierce, and all of a sudden he hangs around for 4 years. It was ridiculous. And then we'll get to the other one in a sec, but I think you know where this is going, and it's the same position. There's a lot of like over romanticized type of stuff. I think a lot of it's on offense. I think we might be heading that direction with my boy Jake Andrews. We might be heading in that direction. He's a good communicator. Okay. Good for him. How's he blocking? How's he snapping the ball to the center? How's that going? Like there's a lot of this romantic. Brevin Jordan, he's always in the facility. He's great. He does all these things. Okay. Well, he can't stay healthy, and we really haven't seen him. He's been here half a decade, and we haven't seen him really produce at a very high level. Okay, that's great that he's a good guy, but what has he done for the squad? Oh yeah, Cade Stover, a hard worker. Okay, can't stay healthy, and that's kind of where I'm getting here with my whole point when it comes to the inexcusable part. And I'll go ahead and pay off this tease, but I'm just going to tell you this. There's a lot of things that we can talk about heading into the offseason that maybe we think that the Texans should do. And if they don't do it, they can make do. There have been a lot of times we've wanted certain players and they haven't taken the player. We've wanted to address certain positions and they don't address the positions, and they end up looking really smart. A lot of times they end up looking really dumb. But either way, there's a chance that you can overcome it, and there's a chance that you can figure some stuff out. But in this situation and in this case, if the Texans don't do this one thing, and maybe you can drink, because I'm really hammering this. I'm hammering this as hard as I can before we get to the combine and before we get to the offseason and before we get to free agency. If the Texans don't do this, then there's zero hope for this franchise. There's zero hope for this franchise. And there's zero hope for them taking the next step. Maybe they can stay where they're at, but there's zero hope for them taking the next step. And we know what the key to them taking the next step is. The key to them taking the next step is figuring out for this offense to not be a grab-ass operation that holds a championship defense back. That's really what they need to do. The quarterback's going to be back, okay? So like this notion, you got to get a new quarterback, it's not happening. So they know that, you know that, I know that. The offensive line needs to get better. We all know that. They're going to try to do something when it comes to the offensive line. That's not an uncertainty. That's 100% fact. They have to. Like the contracts are forcing them to have to do that, and they're going to have to do something some way, shape, or form. So that's going to happen. Wide receiver, they could very well stay put. Who knows? Running back, who the hell knows? Some people say it's not as important. I think it should be one of their top priorities, but maybe they can talk themselves into like a lower level committee. But there's no hope for this organization. There's no hope for Nick Caley. There's no hope for Nick Caserio, and there's no hope for D'Amico Ryans ever being good or better than good if they don't address tight end this offseason. It's that serious and it's that crucial. It's that serious and it's that crucial. Because there's three things that I think I want to showcase when it comes to this. First of all, let's just look at Dane Brugler. I think Dane Brugler is the best in the game when it comes to the draft. And Dane Brugler put this out of The Athletic. Looking forward for the Beast to come out, which is the best piece of draft stuff. But you look at this right now. You look at this depth. So there's day 3 depth at tight end. There's top to bottom depth of tight end. But there's more tight ends invited this year than there have been in the last 5 years. So there's that. There's opportunity, and you have a lot of extra picks. You have day 3s, you have day 2s, you have plenty of picks. Some people want Sadiq in the first round. Who knows if that's even a possibility? A lot of the mocks don't seem to believe that is going to happen. But this is the main point I'm trying to make. And these are the 3 reasons why you don't have a chance in hell. Number 1 is it's neglect of what should be obvious at this point. It's neglect of what should be obvious at this point. And when you hear Nick Caserio, and I'm going to play this quote again, when you hear Nick Caserio say this about him and D'Amico in the offense, which is clearly 8 steps behind the defense, it makes you wonder, okay, are they neglecting? Are they incompetent or what? Is he lying? What's going on?
It's a combination of things, Make sure we got enough players, we're doing some things schematically, or there's some things that have popped up in those games. So, again, you look at those games, you look at other games as well, you look around the league, what are some teams doing, what are some things you might be able to incorporate. So, again, offense has really never been D'Amico and I have never sat in our office and said, well, our offense is a concern, what do we got to do? We got to play better. There's some things.
Okay. Offense has never been a concern. What do we got to do? We got to play better. Okay. You're not going to play better with the tight ends you have. This is obvious. You got to stop this. Sometimes I feel like these guys are journalists in the media. Some of my colleagues, they're just looking for some over romanticized bullshit to write about. Brevin Jordan comeback season. You've written that story twice, and both times he's gotten hurt. That doesn't mean that you pause the game. We know how the human body works, right? When you have a comeback season and then you have a season-ending injury, and then the next offseason, we're talking about how hard you worked and how hard it was to come back from that adversity, and then sadly it happens again, you realize you don't just press pause, right? This is not a situation where an elite player had a couple of injuries and you're wondering if he can return back to being elite. There were question marks about whether Brevin Jordan was this. And 2 years in a row now, we've had the injuries, and that doesn't just pause things. So that should be obvious. They also watch Cade Stover play. They also watch Cade Stover play. A lot of times they're not able to because he's not on the field. But when he's on the field, it's not great. So this should be obvious. I feel like when I say this is like, well, no shit, Landry, of course. And I think they do it. But there's also this over-romanticized factor that are they really this neglectful to where they're gonna do it? But it should be obvious. It should be when I said this, you should be talking to your computer, your phone, whatever you're talking to, and you should say, no shit, Sherlock. Yeah, no shit, dumbass. That's what you should be saying about me. Yeah, thanks, Captain Obvious. I don't know. I hear the way they talk about Cade Stover. I hear the way they talk about Brevin Jordan. I see the fact that Brevin Jordan got an extension this year after he got hurt. I'm sure it's not like top end. I hear all this motivation about how Brevin Jordan's around. He's a good mentor. I don't dismiss that, but at this point, it's got to be, can he play? Like this is not like you got to be able to make some tough decisions. Cade Stover, okay, like again, should be competing to make the roster next year at this point with what we've seen from him. So that's number one. It would be neglect of what's obvious. And when it comes to the urgency, we just laid it out. You have 9 starters at least coming back with their arrow pointing up, a lot of them, on a championship caliber defense. You should not be neglecting what's obvious on offense. That should not happen. So number 2 reason that this would just be inexcusable and you should lose all hope is you're ignoring a multi-beneficial position. Tight end can help your quarterback get rid of the ball quickly. Tight end can help your offensive line if you need to keep guys in. Like ideally, most tight ends, when you talk about him, it's like, well, this guy is a really good blocker. Okay. Or he can't block. He's a receiver. The Texans have one guy who's a good receiver and then 2 guys who aren't good at anything. I mean, that's crazy. This is a position, and you listen to what Dalton Schultz said when he was on 610. I think he was on with Clinton Ron, and Reginald brought this up on the Texans Collective, which you can watch with myself, Stoots, Sean, and Reg on Mondays at 6. Subscribe to that channel. He talked about how they were doing a lot of blocking in 2 tight end sets, like in the offseason, and then they kind of had to abandon it because Jordan and Stover got hurt. And they might have had to anyways because those guys haven't really played very well. So if it's that important, then find guys who can do it that can play. Like I don't know why you get like to wipe the slate clean because you got injured. Like, yeah, there's the old school Tom Landry. Well, you can't lose your job due to injury. What if it was a year where you were trying to earn a job and you got hurt? What if you never had the job? Because I don't subscribe to it either way. I don't think Caserio does either. Because if he did, Tom Brady might have never happened. But how does that work? Don't know. So that's the number 2 reason it would be incompetent. Number 3, it would really, really expose Nick Caley. It would make him either look like a puppet or it would make him look foolish. It would make him look foolish. What was one of the first things Nick Caley said? He was a tight end coach. He said, I like tight ends. Okay. That's cool. Like, and I'm not even faulting the Texans for not getting a tight end last year. There was an opportunity, but they had probably a little bit more needs. They didn't have, 15 starters set like we just laid out, 15, 16, 17, especially in that 1-year window. Like the 1-year window that they have of guys under contract and good guys under contract kind of makes this a little bit more urgent. But after this year, Dalton Schultz contract's going to be up. He's going to be a year older. And then Brevin Jordan, his contract expires if he makes the team. And then you have Stover. So when Nick Caley says he likes tight ends, if this is the type of tight end that you like, then you don't need to be in the NFL. I'm sorry. Like no, put Schultz to the side. Put Dalton Schultz to the side. If this tight end room that you currently have under contract with Brevin Jordan and Cade Stover is what you like, you got to go, man. Or else they just don't give a damn what you think. Because your level of expertise is really low if that's what you like. So you got to figure that out. You got to figure that out. I mean, that's got it. It's just a must. It would expose him as either dumb or a puppet. And again, this is really just like a Captain Obvious type of take. That's just what it is. But they got to do it. They've got to do it. I mean, this is and I say they got to do it, but you look at the running back position, and this is why it's such an interesting discussion. If Dameon Pierce hangs around for 4 years, by the way, his one good year was better than anything that these guys have done over the course of an entire season. But if he hangs around, and then Dare Ogunbowale hangs around for more than a few, is it crazy? Is it crazy? I don't know. I think it's a little bit crazy. Join SNL at Spanky's. We're going to be out there at Spanky's on the 20th. Sharpstown location. We got you covered. We're going to be boozing. We're going to be eating pizza. We're going to be eating pasta. And then we're going to be going to the combine in 3 days. We will have a lot of prizes courtesy of our friends at TriStar. We'll also have some other stuff to give away and a lot of draft to discuss. This is really important because Spanky's is rolling with us 12 months a year. And this is a 365 operation. You all know that. And they give us a place to chill, hang out, mingle with the peeps. That's when we really got to show out. We got the big draft party. There's no doubt people are going to be there for that, but we need to show out. We need to enjoy the best happy hour in town, the drinks, all that type of stuff, because I think Spanky's understands what this community is and what me and Stoots do, covering the team every day and being there all the time. And we want you to join us there. And it's always fun. So join us at Spanky's Sharpstown the 20th before we go to the NFL Combine. And business really picks you up. Vince says he'll see me there. See you there, Vince. Mi amigo. It's going to be fun. All right. So I think this is the other thing that I think is something that Nick Caserio and D'Amico Ryans need to do. They need to show some growth. And this is not like a mental thing, like a attaboy thing, like a, growing up. I'm not trying to big bro, little bro, be the mouthy ass media type that says it. But I do think if they are neglecting the offense, and if I'm going to listen to Nick Caserio, and I believe him that they've never really said the offense is a problem, because we've seen the offense and they obviously don't put much into it, or they don't produce results from it. So I do believe him when he says that. Maybe it's time to take a step back and say, okay, we need to change that. We need to change that, and maybe show some growth. Get rid of this over romanticized stuff, and just make some changes. And I think there's 2 changes that I would like to see from them. I think there's 2 changes that I would like to see from them. Be sure to drink. Cheers. They need to upgrade at tight end. Period. There's 2 over-romanticized pieces that you have right there. Also, perhaps being proactive and being open to getting better with Schultz. Help your quarterback out. Quarterback's best friend can be not 1, not 2, 3 tight ends. Block, catch, do something. Find guys that can do one thing well. Not guys who can't catch or block, maybe run fast, don't catch consistently, can't block. Upgrade at tight end. Show some growth. Quit neglecting. And upgrade at tight end. And the next one is this. And I hate saying this. I'll get to it in a sec. But first, let's go to the chat. St. Louis Rebel, you are always the man, my friend.
Swarm.
The biggest legend I know. Shout out to Hodax. He says, if Kamari or Stingley go down, the season is a wrap. I don't trust Jalen Smith coming off an injury. Let me ask you this. If you go back, I love going back to last year. I'm not with Jalen Smith. I'll get to the next part of it, Rebel. With Jalen Smith, I'm not completely sold either, based on the small sample size I had and what they were saying about him in the draft. But I will say this. I do think they deserve some leniency and maybe the benefit of the doubt when it comes to DBs at this point. I think when it comes to drafting defensive backs, especially if they like to trade up and get them, I think they do deserve probably a little bit of the benefit of the doubt. So I'm not completely out on Jalen Smith, but I'm not going to be sitting here like saying that for sure Jalen Smith's going to be good. But I'm with you. There's that. If you could go back to last year's draft, would you take Will Johnson over Jaden Higgins with the 34th pick? I would not. And I actually think under the radar, I think Jaden Higgins was one of their most important players last year. I was talking about this with Stoots today on SNL. If you go back and look at the games, I don't know how many games they win without him. Now, maybe you would add a little bit more depth in other positions. For me, it was between wide receiver and running back. So the example I put up was Henderson or one of the Ohio State guys, Henderson or Judkins. But for me, I think if you go back and watch last season, I think Higgins was actually really important. Like some of the plays that he made. Like I don't think they win the Jacksonville game and start the win streak without Higgins. There were a couple other games where he made big plays that I don't know that the Texans win. And the other part about it is the Christian Kirk signing was so bad.
Captain Kirk, can you save me? Captain Kirk, I want to have your baby.
That he was almost like the lipstick on the pig of that pick. Now, maybe this would mean that Jalen Noel gets more involved. I don't know that I trust them to do that, and they still make the pick. But now I would not. I think the Higgins pick looks good, and if you go back and look at it, I think he did really well. But the Jalen Smith, I get. Like I'm not completely saying based on what I've seen or whatever that I think is good, but I do think they kind of deserve the benefit of the doubt on that. Although Tremont Smith might have actually played better than him in camp, and we saw what Tremont Smith did. So shout out to you, St. Louis Rebels. Shout out to everyone else on the chat. So the next thing that I think that the Texans can show growth on is you got to move on from Dare Ogunbowale, man. Like this might sound like a small thing, but you gotta move on from Dare Ogunbowale. You gotta move on from him. And I know this is a small thing, but at this point, like the ridiculousness of overvaluing special teams is getting a little bit old. It's getting a little bit old. Like last year, you gave $4 million to a guy who didn't even make the team, and it was really kind of weird that he got the deal in the first place. You already have a running back who's an ass kicker on special teams, who I think is better at running back than him too, and can also do other things in British Brooks. Like, do you need 2 of your 5 running backs to be guys who you only use on special teams? At this point, the Dare Ogunbowale thing's cool. I know Frank Ross cried when he became a captain, and they give him the ball on the 4-yard line, which I think any of the backs could have scored a touchdown on that. It was a little bit of an element of surprise. And in emergency situations, he's done great. He's done an awesome job of carving out an NFL career for himself. But let's grow up. Like there's running backs in the 6th round, there's running backs in the 7th round that end up helping teams. They do so for cheap, and they're able to help you. They don't fumble the ball and cost you a game. They're not clogging up roster spots for potential guys. Like they cut Jawar Jordan last year. And what happened when Nick Chubb got hurt? What happened? Jawar Jordan came in and had over 100 yards. What did Dare Ogunbowale do? Nothing. Like their special teams is already set. Yet British Brooks right now, your running back who's your ass-kicking special teamer is British Brooks. He's a badass special teamer. He also every once in a while goes in there at fullback. Quite frankly, the one time I saw him run this year, I thought it looked pretty good. But they got to get over this romanticized shit. The guy's 33 years old. He's been here for half a decade. I like the guy. It's nothing against him. In the big scheme of things, you can say, well, it's just this much salary. Get over it. You cut John Weeks. You cut John Weeks. John Weeks was a Pro Bowl deep snapper this year, and you were fine. I love John Weeks. He's my boy. Talked to him a week ago. Look forward to catching up with him. I like him, but you moved on from him. He's a Pro Bowler with the 49ers. You brought in a deep snapper that does the exact same thing. You probably saved about $1 million, whatever it is, maybe more, based on the veteran salary. You moved on. Do the same thing with Dari Gunbowale. You already got British Brooks. You just paid Hansen. You gave Hansen an extension. You got a lot of guys who can play special teams. You can find a guy who can play special teams. Give me somebody who you can maybe use as a running back every once in a while. Just grow up. Grow up. Get over it. Quit neglecting the offense. You wouldn't treat a defensive roster spot like that. You notice that? Like with the gap between defense and offense, do you notice this? And you hear Nick Caserio. Let's hear him say it again. Let me just make this very clear. Because Nick Caserio, with the defensive-minded coach, has said this. I'm going to emphasize this.
It's a combination of things, Make sure we got enough players. We're doing some things schematically, or there's some things that have popped up in those games. So, again, you look at those games. You look at other games as well. You look around the league. What are some teams doing? What are some things you might be able to incorporate? So, again, offense has really never been D'Amico and I have never sat in our office and said, well, our offense is a concern. What do we got to do? We got to play better.
Okay. But have you noticed this? They have 2 running backs who just do special teams, pretty much. Is that common? In return game isn't even one of them. They really had 3. Think about this. Before they got rid of Dameon Pierce, they had 3 running backs who only did special teams. And they felt obligated to put Dameon Pierce at kick return because of one return a few years ago. Think about this. Seriously. We're seeing the light here. They got to grow up. And they got to quit neglecting. Think about it. At the start of the year, your running back depth chart was Nick Chubb, Woody Marks, Dari Gunbowale, Dameon Pierce, British Brooks. That's 5 guys. 5 guys. 3 of those guys mainly play special teams. 3 of those guys. Typically, those are your linebackers. On the other hand, at linebacker, they really had 2 guys that only did special teams. It was Harris and it was Hansen. And both of those guys could maybe be trusted to go in. But it adds to the neglect. And then you have Frank Ross, our boy, go up there and cry because the guy became a captain. Props for the overachieving. But you got to show some growth and you got to move on from it. At some point, enough is enough. I'm sorry, but having 3 guys that you can't even that you don't even use at running back, that's insane. And then the guy that you cut multiple times comes in and gets 100 yards. That's nuts. We can't be insane. We can't be insane. And that's really at the end of the day what fans want. That's what media wants. You don't want to feel insane and feel like you're smarter than your front office or whatever. There's neglect going on offense. It's either incompetence, it's neglect. Caserio says they've never worried about it. I'm gonna ask y'all in the chat for real. And the people who watch after, just let me know this. Because again, I believe him. But let me ask you this. And I want you to put the number. Just estimate. Let's pretend we're guessing. Let's pretend that we're guessing jelly beans in the jar. Okay? How many times in the last 2 years, in the last two seasons of watching Texans football, with this defense just becoming amazing player after amazing player, emerging star after emerging star, whether there's guys turning back the clock like Sheldon Rankins, there's guys like surpassing the highest of high expectations like Will Anderson, Lassiter, Bullock, Derek Stingley doing his thing. Henry To'oTo'o's getting better each year. Derek Stingley is doing his thing. Azeez Al-Shire, even better than we expected. Just Tommy Togiai off the streets to being one of the better interior D linemen in the league. Like, we see this, okay? I'm asking you. I'm not asking Nick Caserio because Nick Caserio already told us the answer. And quite frankly, the results have shown the actions. But I'm asking you, all of you, you people, and I do mean you people, how many times in the last 2 years, whether it was the one of two operations, whether it was the
Damn it, Bobby.
operation or the
Nick.
how many times have you said to yourself, damn, our offense is ass. This offense sucks. My God, this offensive line's terrible. These tight ends can't block. What's going on with these receivers? There's no running back depth. Nick Caserio says, again, let me just play it again. I want to emphasize this. And the reason why is because it can be solved. That it can be solved. Like, you can do this. And again, we've been focusing on CJ a lot. Deservedly so, because they didn't ask a lot from him. But he said this, I'm playing it again. I know it's getting repetitive like Mike Jones, but we've got to hammer this.
It's a combination of things, Make sure we got enough players, we're doing some things schematically, or there's some things that have popped up in those games. So, again, you look at those games, you look at other games as well, you look around the league, what are some teams doing, what are some things you might be able to incorporate. So, again, offense has really never been D'Amico and I have never sat in our office and said, well, our offense is a concern, what do we got to do?
How many times have you, when watching the Texans, and most of you have a rooting interest in the Texans? I cover them objectively. I do whatever I can. I'll be honest, though, I benefit more when the Texans are good. This isn't New York. This isn't LA. This isn't like the Cowboys. Like, misery doesn't love company around here. People just stop fucking showing up to NRG. So I benefit from it. But how many times in the last 2 years have you said to yourself, man, this offense sucks. This offense is ass. You just heard Nick Caserio say him and D'Amico have never at all said, man, offense is a problem. You fired the OC, brother. You scored 100 combined points in the second halves of your two biggest games of the season. You and D'Amico have never said that our offense is a problem? Okay. Hopefully that changes. We're talking about growth. Everybody grows in some way, shape, or form, at least successful, unless they're just allowed to be on a mediocre treadmill. But you said that. Well, maybe it's time to say that. Maybe it's time to say that. Because the reality is your offense, regardless of what we want to blame, we can blame the quarterback. We can blame the offensive coordinator. We can blame whoever. There's plenty of blame to go around. Yeah, your offense wasn't good enough to beat New England this year. You almost lost to Pittsburgh. Your defense damn near forced a dozen turnovers, whatever the hell it ended up being in those two games. You fired your OC. And you've never said our offense is a problem? Just think about that. Just think about that. That's insane. And Black Soul, I get what you're saying, and I get what you're thinking. You're saying that's cap. They had to say that. I don't know. I watched this offense and I believe him. But it's okay to change. It's okay to change. It's okay to evolve. And that's what they're gonna have to do. You're gonna have to change. You're gonna have to evolve. Like, look around. Like, just look around the league. We'll look at what's going on with the teams that the Texans are chasing. We talked about the NFC, AFC Super Bowl odds. Okay, we don't know what the Colts are going to do at quarterback. They got to do something. They're kind of in quarterback hell. Who knows what they're going to do? So they really haven't. They haven't done anything yet. We'll see. and we'll figure it out. Jacksonville won the division last year. They're bringing back both their coaches. Okay, see what that looks like. Tennessee hired Robert Saleh, who I love, and Robert Saleh hired Brian Dable as his OC. Brian Dable's had a lot of success with a lot of young quarterbacks. Josh Allen, Jackson Dart was kind of cooking. He's had some success with the young QBs. So, yeah, Brian Dable. Daniel Jones, before Shane Steichen got to him, he was kind of doing his thing. He got paid because of Brian Dable. So they made that change. Denver, who went further than you, they just took the boy wonder who everybody wanted to hire on their staff, and they elevated him to offensive coordinator. Seems like a decent move to me. Seems all right. Can't really hate on that. Pretty smart by Sean Payton. Kansas City, they have the 9th pick in the draft. Some are saying they may go running back. They brought back Bieniemy. They said goodbye to Nagy. So they made a change. Okay. Raiders. The Raiders have the number 1 pick. I'm not saying the Raiders and Texans are in the same category, but they brought in the Super Bowl winning offensive coordinator. They have really good tight end and a really good running back that young, and we'll see what happens there. Okay. Chargers. Okay, the Chargers had a bad offensive line last year. Herbert got roughed up. What are they going to do? Well, they're going to get 2 of the best tackles in the league back. They're getting Ott back, and they're getting Rashawn Slater back. So naturally, it's not like who are they going to draft? Who are they going to sign? Can they afford it? They're getting 2 of the best tackles in football back, one of which they didn't have at all last year, and the other of which they only had for damn near a handful of games. They're getting them back. Oh, and by the way, they hired Mike McDaniel to call plays. So there you go. Buffalo and Baltimore made changes. We don't know whether they're going to be good or not. Texans are running it fucking back with the same staff. Now, maybe they give better players to the staff, but they're running it back with the same staff, which they really kind of did when they brought in Nick Caley. Like, they're bringing in a few guys that Cole Popovich knows. I think they might have gone to prom together or something like that. They might have been in the same limo with their dates. But they didn't hire Mike McDaniel. They didn't hire Brian Dable. They didn't bring in a new QB coach. They fired their tight end coach. Okay. But give him someone to work with. I mean, I don't know whether the tight end coach was worth the shit. It didn't feel like he had a lot to work with. Got to figure something out. And again, if you don't address this tight end thing, you just don't want to be good. You don't want to be good. If this team was, and I'm not letting CJ Stroud off the hook, but I will say this. If this team was as well coached, the investments are the investments. It's fine. You can't invest in everything. So I'm not going to sit here and say, well, they should have made this move and that move or whatever. This offseason, they damn sure better go all in, and they better get some improvement. But if this team on offense could be a hair on the ass of what D'Amico's defense is, they're in at least the conference championship this year. And who knows? Maybe it's just a neglect thing. But that better stop. That better stop, Nick. You got to figure that out. Let's go to the chat. Talk to the peeps. The Rhino in the building.
Swarm.
He says, I feel like if they choose to go with upgrades on offense, we can pull the right chess moves in order to flip the switch. Look at you just throwing all my drinking games out there. I think it's actually well laid out for him to where there's an opportunity. When you already have half your team is championship caliber, and you have some decent pieces to build around, and you have some you had a good draft last year, you can figure it out. Just don't ignore that tight end and RB position. Figure out what's going on. But yeah, I think I agree with you. But I don't think it has. I don't think it. Let me put it this way. I think you should be able to proactively assess situations. I think you should be able to be a successful GM, to be a successful overseer year to year of an offense or a defense. I think you have to proactively be able to see things. And I think there's good examples of D'Amico Ryans doing it. Like, I think there's good examples of D'Amico Ryans doing it on defense. Like, he decided that, Jonathan Grenard had a good year. So he said, okay, well, I like him, but I think Danielle Hunter fits in with what we do. I think it was good. Jonathan Grenard's good, but I thought that was a good move. Blake Cashman, same thing. He said, I'm going to go with Aziz. And there you go. He stayed loyal to Henry Toto, and he did that. Like, on offense, like, you should be, it shouldn't have to hit rock bottom before you decide you got to make changes. Now, at this point, they don't have a choice. But you gotta be somewhat proactive when it comes to making changes on offense. Like, am I being unfair? And the other examples I'll use, and this is really kind of one of like the advantages that we have, being there every day, hanging on every word that every player, every coach has said for the last decade plus in the market, myself and Stoots, and even more close now that we're 100% digital. Like, when you hear Nick Caley say, yeah, I don't really notice a difference in CJ Stroud using his legs since he came back from the concussion. No, I'm not. It doesn't seem any different. Brother, his first drive back, he threw the ball 5 yards in front of the line of scrimmage, man. He had 20 yards the final 6 games, 31 total if you count playoffs. In 6 of 8 games, he had 20-plus yards rushing by itself before the concussion. And that's not like something that you got to keep a secret. That's the other thing. They're weirdos when they go to the podium, and sometimes they try to like keep secrets. But when you hear that, and then you hear CJ Stroud after the Pittsburgh game say he thought he played well, and you hear Nick and D'Amico say, yeah, it was kind of out of character. We got to be a little bit better, but it was out of character. Other than that, I thought he played really well. Why do you have to say that? Like, what's the standard? And then the very next game, he goes out and plays worse. And then you have Caserio saying, yeah, it's kind of a one-off. Well, it's not a one-off because it happened the game before the last game. And your OC and your coach were basically saying, yeah, he's got to be better, but, he played well at certain points. I just don't understand it. And that's not being a hardo or anything like that. I don't understand that. I just don't think Mike Vrabel would do that. I don't think Mike McDonald would do that. I don't understand. They got to figure that out. Vince asked if I think Woody's the running back. No, I think they need to compliment Woody for sure. Benjamin on the chat says, look, after 23 years of Texans football, I'm already traumatized enough. So I'm done believing anything the Texans GM says or head coach. It's just robotic talk. It's fair. Still got to try to read between the lines in my line of work, but I agree. L3 says, almost makes me think that they blame CJ for his failures and not Johnson for the lack of development, at least behind closed doors. Yeah, I don't know. Like, the Gerard Johnson thing is interesting. They fired their online coach and he's back. So, yeah, it's an interesting thing. Rob says if CJ leaves, he will go to somewhere that already has like 4 first-round picks on O-line already invested, and he'll be successful. Look, he pissed away the final game of the season. Like that, there can be multiple layers of suck. He wasn't asked to do a lot, but I get what you're saying and what you think. So yeah, little Jesus, do you think Hannah would get involved in making sure things straighten up? I don't know where this like Hannah comes in and says something type of thing is. She does seem to have the pulse. She does seem to have the heart to say stuff, but yeah, I don't necessarily think that Hannah's like going to come in and do that. Blue Boy says it's not small, Landry. Casario did the same damn thing with Rex Burkhead. At least they weren't trying to win at that point. Although they did win a game and, kind of a pointless one. But yeah, I mean, at least they were kind of in like a not trying to win type of spot. And I also thought that was Coley at the time, because Burkhead, he did it with Amendola here, but Burkhead was actually Easterby more. That was with Easterby trying to do all the Patriot shit. When Burkhead had that one good game against the Chargers. Yeah, that was 2022. So yeah, 2, 3. Yeah. Yeah, so we had a little bit of Casario. Yeah, we did. With yeah, you're right. Jack was big on him too, but yeah. Yeah, they at least weren't trying to win. It's kind of sad though when your actions feel like you're not trying to win, and they're kind of proportional to when you are and when it's crucial.
Swarm.
TX Perp Sipper says Texans roster loaded on defense and offense. If Higgins and Knoll take the next step, we should be a problem. CJ Bumass is the only person that can stop this team from. Yeah, I think Higgins and Knoll taking the next step is an excellent point too. But you've got to address the tight end, you got to address the RB, and you got to really continue to do what you've done when it comes to the draft. But I mean, if you admittedly go up there and say, we've never thought the offense was a problem, maybe you should now. Maybe it centers around the quarterback. It's fine. Just give it a little bit of attention, man. You gotta water the plant a little bit. Figure something out. God, we don't think our offense is a problem. It's a crazy statement. With what's happened the last 2 years, you haven't said that. Maybe CJ's play forces them to say that. Maybe it forces them to say that, and they feel like more like they have like a Jimmy Garoppolo type. I know that name will like trigger some people. Why are you comparing CJ and Jimmy? I'm not, but I'm just saying you got to build a certain type of team around him to be successful. So maybe you just approach it like that and try to get as many weapons as possible and figure it out. I think there's just a couple elements of growth that they need to show. The reality is, whether it's growth, whatever it is, they got to address it. They got to get it done. Period, point blank, end of story. They got the resources to do it. Combine coming up. We'll hear from Nick Casario. I'm going to ask Nick about that comment when we have the off to the side discussion. I want to ask him about the notion that they've never really worried about the offense. So we'll see. He'll talk to the national, and then he'll talk to the local. And before that, of course, join us at Spanky's. Spanky Sharpstown for Combine Send-Off. Give me a large, extra cheese, sausage, pepperoni, and bell pepper pizza. That's what I'm going with. Thin crust, extra sauce too. Thank you. Appreciate y'all for rolling through. Shout out to the greatness of Sleeper. Again, $20. Use that promo code LOCKER if you want to get in the game. Hell of a lot of information there. Best scoring app in the game. best way to enjoy March Madness. A lot of information with the new Team Picks launch, and the greatest just became even greater. Download the Sleeper app. Trust me, you will not regret it. Appreciate y'all for rolling through. Subscribe, like, ride along. Always remember, when it comes to this Texan stuff, we're all in it together. Nick, come on, man. We got to be better, Nick. We got to be better, Nick. Both Nicks.
Nick.
Have a good night, folks.
Don't stop. Yeah, we top 2 and we not too plugged in daily digital on YouTube. We got taste for days, opinions to give, we got takeaways. If it's up, then it's up. We number 1. You don't need to try your luck. Locker room, yeah, we in the locker room. Texas talk, yeah, you know what we about to do. Localize, every angle's what we really do. We the source, we the pulse of the city too.